Hi guys, and welcome to Crypto Exposed. Okay guys, I got a post here by Marco Salzman, and I wanted to cover this just because obviously I've done a lot of content, you guys know this, but one of the things that I always tell you guys is when we talk about mass adoption, and this post, I've spoke about this numerous times, but this is a bit more in depth, but I just wanted to relate to stuff that I've been saying to you guys for numerous times now, and what I keep saying is about when it comes to mass adoption, we're talking about essentially the cryptos or these networks being used and people may not even realize it. So this goes into a bit more depth, and then I'll obviously just continue to expand on my thoughts. So let's go through this. So before I do start, again, big shout out to Marco Salzman. If you do want to follow him, his name is MarcoSalzmann80, and that's on X on Twitter. Okay, so he says, nothing to see here. That's exactly the point. The most valuable infrastructure is often invisible, and that's the future Hedera is quietly building. When people think about blockchain, they usually think about tokens. Hedera is pursuing something different. Its goal isn't to become the product people use, it's to become the trust layer powering the products they use every day. Think about the internet. Most people know Netflix. Very few know which cloud infrastructure delivers the stream. The infrastructure matters. It just isn't visible. That's exactly the model Hedera is pursuing. The same pattern is already emerging. AI payments, tokenized assets, digital identity, enterprise compliance, cross-border settlement. Different industries, one common requirement: trust. That's why Hedera keeps investing in infrastructure instead of headlines. Project Hero moved its open source governance to the Linux Foundation, not for marketing, but long-term enterprise confidence. You can already see the building blocks coming together. X402 for AI native payments, Bills on Chain for tokenized business documents, WeCan for compliance and identity, Rosen for borderless earnings. Different products, one trust layer. Insurance is another example. Hedera and the Institute's Riskstream Collaborative are working to reduce fragmented insurance data by improving trusted data sharing across participants. Again, not consumer hype, enterprise infrastructure. Privacy follows the same philosophy. It's not simply another feature. For regulated industries, privacy is part of the infrastructure itself. Without trusted data handling, enterprise adoption doesn't scale. This is why many people underestimate Hedera. They're looking for visible consumer apps. Meanwhile, Hedera continues building the infrastructure underneath industries that require trust, auditability, and predictable performance. Success for infrastructure often looks invisible. Nobody talks about the internet's routing protocols. Nobody thinks about payment rails when buying coffee. If Hedera succeeds, most users may never realize they're using it. Nothing to see here. Maybe that's exactly the point. The strongest infrastructure isn't always the one making the most noise. It's the one quietly becoming impossible to replace. Yeah, wow, that was really well put. Really well put. So, yeah, when I've been speaking to you guys about the future and when we keep talking about mass adoption, this is what mass adoption is. And this is what a lot of people don't realize. Mass adoption is when you can use something and you may not understand exactly how it works. I'll give you an example. A car, right? A lot of people know how to drive a car, but they don't know what makes a car work. They don't know how to fix a car. They might be able to do, very bog standard things. They might be able to jump start a car or change a battery or something like that. But they probably couldn't, literally take a full car apart and change some of the, the more complex things. They might not be able to change a cam belt, for example, or something like that. So that's where you need someone who's specialized, right? But they know how to drive a car. They know what a car can do. They still use a car. That's mass adoption, right? You're using something, but you don't necessarily know the full inner workings of it. You just know how to generally use it. Same with the internet, right? As it was mentioned here. There's many things we use on the internet day to day. We don't know what goes on behind the scenes to make a lot of these things work. And so we're using it, but we don't know the full, knowledge of it. And this is where Hedera comes in. we're a little bit different in the sense of, we're doing research. You guys are watching my content. You're doing your own research as well. I'm doing my own research and I'm putting out this content for you guys too to help learn. And we've obviously got like a vested interest. So we're really getting into the weeds of this and wanting to understand it. But there are going to be people out there who they just want to have something that's more convenient. So, for example, the internet, right? So a lot of people use the internet, but they don't know how the internet fully works. So, simple things like sending an email. They may not know the things that go behind an email being sent across the internet, right? Using websites, they don't know, that goes on behind making a website and all the coding and things like that that's happening behind the scenes to make these websites available and the things that you can do on these websites. Playing a game on the internet. People don't know all the coding and things like that makes the game work, but they just have fun using these websites and these games and whatnot, right? And so an example of this again is like, for example, cross-border payments, right? A lot of people don't know what happens with cross-border payments. They don't know how it works. All they know is they have to make a payment and it's going to cost a lot of money and it's going to take a few days for that payment to be done. Now, if you was to be able to tell someone, hey, look, we're not going to tell you how it works or anything like that, but we'll be able to do a payment for you and it's going to be significantly cheaper and it's going to be instant as well. So you'll be able to transfer the money that day. It will get there the same day within seconds and it's going to cost you significantly less money than it would have normally. They're not going to care about how it works. They just want to know that they've got that convenience. That's what mass adoption is. So when Marco was talking about this, like, I was just like, this was just ringing so true. And I just thought this was so relevant for me to cover because I've been telling you guys this for the longest. And this really broke it down a bit more in a bit more detail. But it's exactly what I've been telling you guys. And I think this is the truth. Now, the one thing I will say is I do think Hedera want their token to be used as well. Obviously, they do want to be the trust layer, but they want their token to be used as well. Like I think that's an obvious thing because that's obviously going to help with the value of the networking, sustaining the network. But I do understand that the main point of like the trust layer for all these developers, right? It's the underlying trust layer for all these use cases that are being made on the network. And to me, that's the point that really drives home. And this is what I'm saying to you guys, like when it's all said and done and we are in the phase of like mass adoption, regulations are through and stuff like that, we'll be at a point where like Hedera could be used in your day-to-day life and you wouldn't even realize it. So for example, you go into a shop and using the card machine, like normally you'd just be thinking, okay, I've just used my card and that's it. But it could be that that's happening on the Hedera hashgraph. That transaction could go through the Hedera hashgraph. And that's why now, when it used to be a thing where you do a transaction, it would take a few days for it to come off your account, right? But now it will happen instantly. Also, normally there would be like a limit that you'd have to be able to spend before you could use the card machine. You'll probably notice now there won't be no limit. It'll just be like, look, you can buy whatever you want. Like there's no set amount that you have to spend before you can use the card. You can just use the card terminal whenever you want. Because now the prices are so cheap, that the fees are so cheap, it's not really going to cost the shop owner anything like significant to be able to use the card terminal, right? Like the fees are so cheap now, it doesn't matter if you only, use 50 cents or something like that, because it's only going to be a fraction of a penny of a charge for the shop owner anyway. So you can see how this is going to be benefiting people, and you won't realize these things, but that's where it's going to be. That's what mass adoption is. It's that thing where it's happening day to day and you don't realize it. You don't know everything about it, what's going on. You're just living your life. But around you, crypto technology is behind it. Hedera will be behind it. So I just thought this is a really good point to make because we are getting to that point where obviously if this Clarity Act does get passed through, we'll be moving on to that stage. And also just to know that like, there might be points where, Hedera is being used and you don't even realize it. Like that could be a thing where you find out later on down the line, like, oh, did you know that that's Hedera who's doing that? Oh, wow, really? Oh, that cross-border payment that you did the other week. Did you know that was done via the Hedera hashgraph? Oh, really? I had no idea. Yeah, they're using Hedera now. Like that's the kind of thing that we're talking about. And I do agree that Hedera is going to be the trust layer for many of these applications. I really do believe that. So yeah, I thought this was just a great thing to just go over because I just felt it was very relevant. And, you know, I've been speaking like this for a while now. So I just felt this really resonated with me. And I thought, you know, I want to share it with you guys and hopefully I'll resonate with you guys too. But we're getting to that point, and I do think Hedera will be one of those networks that it will be the invisible trust layer for many different use cases, in my personal opinion. But I'll leave it there. If you did like this video, please remember to like, comment and subscribe so you can be updated for future HBAR content. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you can be alerted on when I do drop a new video. Thank you very much for watching this, and I'll see you all on the next one.